The opinions expressed on Missouri Viewpoints are those of our guests and may not necessarily reflect the views of the program producers or of this station. Closed captioning is provided by the Show Me Institute. Learn more at showmeinstitute.org. Funding for Missouri Viewpoints is provided by AT&T Missouri. Learn more at att.com. And additional funding is provided by the Missouri Institute of Mental Health. Learn more about mental health first aid at mhfamissouri.org.
The issues that matter, the newsmakers who impact our lives. This is Missouri Viewpoints with Mike Ferguson.
Happy holidays. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving meal. You know, for a lot of people, though, there was no Thanksgiving meal. In fact, there aren't meals all the time every day, and they could be living right around you. Hi, I'm Mike Ferguson. Thank you for being a part of Missouri Viewpoints. We're here at one of Feeding Missouri's food banks, and there is one in your area. You're going to be surprised at how many Missourians they feed, not just every year, but every day. You're also going to be very surprised at how easy it is for you to help, and it might not even cost you any money, but it goes a long way, and it impacts a huge number of lives right here in the state and right here in your local community. I'm joined by Monica Palmer, who's the Communications Director for Feeding Missouri. Monica,
Yes.
Good to talk to you again.
It's always a pleasure.
Now, we've done this program once a year. This is what, our third year, I think it
Yes.
is. And we've always done it in the studio, but we got to talking and saying, you know what, let's come out to one of the food bank network warehouses here and offices and really kind of show people how easy it is to help. And we're talking about how easy it is to help. Let's first talk about why there's a need to help. You serve so many people that it's kind of jaw-dropping.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's hunger in every single county in the state of Missouri and the city of St. Louis. There's hunger everywhere. So having one food bank just wouldn't do it. So we have 6 Feeding America food banks throughout the state. We're in the St. Louis area food bank, and this is one of our 6, and they serve so many people, and we make sure that our network is able to serve every single county in the state of Missouri. So that's why you have to have 6 food banks, but we also have countless, like over 1,500 agencies, food pantries, food programs, buddy pack, you know, all of these things working together is what's feeding all of the people in Missouri.
So let's kind of explain what's happening right here behind us. We've got pallets of all kinds of food. We've got some gentlemen over here that are moving it around. You probably get donations coming in almost every day, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit as well. They're preparing this, and these are going to go out where?
They're going to go to agencies. So the food banks are not a frontline agency where the clients can actually come and get food. So this is a major distinction between a food pantry and a food bank. So a food pantry is where the client is actually going to go and get that box of food, or that soup kitchen where they're going to go and have a meal. The food banks are these gigantic warehouses like we're standing in right now. So this gives you a visual of just exactly how much food is going in and out of these. And there are 6 of these in the state of Missouri.
So when somebody needs some help, and they go to the community center, or they go to the church basement, or they go wherever it is, that food at some point came through a warehouse just like this. And if we're in the eastern part of the state, it came from here.
Sure, a good chunk of their food does come from here. They also have some local donations and monetary donations so they can buy certain things, but a good chunk of the food at the pantries throughout the state is coming from a food bank.
Is there a typical client, as you call them? Because a lot of times we hear, oh, you know, that part of town's kind of poor. Those people probably need a lot of help. But as we've done these shows before, and when I've been in radio around the state, I've been involved in food drives, I've been surprised at so many of the stories. Because we talk about the number of people, the number of counties, we're really talking about everybody who's taken in our conversation right now. We could be talking about their next door neighbor, no matter where they live.
It could be the kid sitting next to your kid in school. It could be, you know, the person that you work with. I mean, a lot of our clients are working poor, so they're making a living, but it's just not enough of a living to make ends meet, pay all their bills, and then have enough money left for food. They're making, you know, impossible choices between, you know, paying for the heat to be on or buying a meal for their family. You know, these are people who look just like you and me. They're all walks of life. They're every skin color. They are, you know, they're all over, and the numbers indicate that there are way more than just what you would envision as somebody being hungry. It's not the person necessarily on the street with the sign. It could be somebody in the grocery store with you, or picking up their kids from your daycare where you're picking up your kids.
And in just a little bit, we're going to talk to Scott Baker, who's the director of Feeding Missouri, and we're going to find out why we don't know who those people are who need help, even if they're right next to us. And also, we're going to highlight some of your volunteers during this program here, because so much of the way to help, which we're going to find out in a little bit, doesn't necessarily have to be writing checks. It doesn't have to be clearing out your pantry at home. Some people, they just don't have it, but they can still help.
And there's such an important part. 56% of the agencies in the network are run by volunteers.
And let's find out what drives somebody to make that volunteer and to make that commitment and to help out. Meet Bobby.
I think that I am growing as a person, and I am recognizing more and more that we are put here on this earth to serve others. Last week, it was about 95 and almost 100% humidity. It wasn't raining, but it was so hot that people were really having a hard time. People were having a hard time with their cars, overheating, and the workers were out in the sun, and it was a hard day. And one elderly gentleman came through, and he had tears streaming down his face, and he said, "I cannot tell you how much this means to me." He said, "You all do this every week with a smile on your face, whether it's raining or snowing or the heat." And I actually have gotten to know him now through this opportunity I've had. And I called him by name and said, "It's our pleasure to be able to do this for you." And he said, "I believe it. I believe you all feel that way." And he said, "I don't know how I'd be making it without this." There is a place for everyone, and everyone has something they can offer and a gift to give. I am Bobby, and I'm Feeding Missouri.
The great thing about Bobby's story right there is that while we talk a lot about the numbers, we talk about the millions of pounds of food or the money that's donated or the number of counties, what Bobby was telling us was it's a very personal volunteer. It's a very personal donation that's happening. So if you get involved, and I hope that you will, it's not that you're helping just an organization meet numerical goals. You're helping to put food on the table, possibly of your neighbors right across the street. I'm joined now by Scott Baker, who is the state director of Feeding Missouri. Scott, thanks for the time.
Thanks for coming out here. Appreciate it.
Now, one of the things that's always interesting that I'm still surprised by this is that when we talk about the donations to Feeding Missouri, talk about the donations to the food banks in general, we can go to the grocery store and spend $50 and buy food for a week for 3 people in the house if we're really, really efficient. You can take that money and provide hundreds of meals. How is that possible?
Yeah, it's amazing what food banks can do for $1. They can get a lot more food than you or I could at the grocery store, and that's really based upon their sourcing model. A lot of it is donations through food drives, but also corporate donations, that sort of thing. But then when they do have to buy food, of which food banks have to buy more and more food, they're able to do it in bulk and get a much lower unit price. So that model really helps them stretch that dollar a long way.
And a lot of the donations you get come from food companies themselves. So what you're really helping with in a lot of cases is that transportation cost.
Oh, yeah.
And the storage cost. And so a lot of times what you're doing is supplementing other donations to make it go even farther. And Monica mentioned a little bit earlier, upwards of 50% of the work done is done by volunteers. So even if somebody doesn't have a lot of money, and let's face it, there's a lot of people that just don't have a lot of money right now, they can still help out.
Yeah, really, not only a food bank organization like this, they're heavily reliant on volunteers, but even at the pantry level, so many of those, they could not distribute food were it not for the volunteers. So yeah, even if you don't have money to give, if you have time, that goes a long way too.
And talent? in a particular area. Some of the areas that Monica and I were talking just a little bit ago may be surprising you. So there may be someone who says, I've got an injury, or because of age, I just can't lift these heavy pallets. I don't know how to drive a forklift or anything like that. But if you have talent in some other area, you may be able to put them to work.
Yeah, really, that's what this is all about. It's just helping people understand the nature of the problem and the help that is needed. Any kind of effort whatsoever really goes a long way in helping solve the problem.
Now, one of the things that we're going to learn a little bit in more depth a little bit later on in the program, first of all, is this isn't high-fat, high-saturated food. This isn't all processed stuff. There's some canned and boxed stuff here, but there's a lot of fresh stuff involved too. We're going to learn about that. Also, we're going to find out that not only do you might not realize who right around you is being helped by your donation, there are some folks who started off as recipients in a bad time in their lives, and now they've come back and they are helping out as well. Right now, we're going to meet one of those people. This is Jody, who's made the journey from receiving help from the food bank to now volunteering her time and helping others get back on their feet or just fill that gap through Feeding Missouri.
I was in here one day and I seen they were really being swamped and didn't have enough help, so I just jumped in and helped them and been doing it ever since. The people are nice and they hug you when they come in. They say thank you even though it's not my food that I'm giving to them, and they're just friendly. They talk and talk and talk and talk. When I was working, I was laid off and the union sent me down here to get food. And I was scared at first because I seen all the people, but they helped me by giving me food. I had a daughter at home at the time, and my unemployment check didn't stretch far enough to pay bills and buy food. And they helped me out a lot with the produce and dairy products. And I felt bad, but afterwards I was glad I had the help. We need younger volunteers down here too. There's college kids, high school kids. They can come down here after school and volunteer a couple of hours. It makes me feel good coming down here. When I'm not down here, I think about this place. I even dream about this place, and that's bad. My name is Jody, and I am Feeding Missouri.
So when you donate to the food bank, what people get are boxed food and canned food. That's it, right? No, not at all. We're back here in the room they call the cooler. I got to tell you, it is cold back here, but that's for a good reason. It's because I'm surrounded by fresh produce. I've got some fresh onions over here, some potatoes fresh from the farm, apple right from the tree, banana from the tree. Your donation isn't just sending some of those prepackaged foods, and those are important, by the way. It's also putting fresh food on the plates of your neighbors right here in your community. Fresh fruit, just like this, is going in buddy packs, and it's going to children who need it the most. How do they do it? We're going to find out here in about 3 minutes with a special look kind of behind the scenes at how the food bank makes your donations go so far. Right now, let's get a look at another issue impacting the state. This commentary is provided by the Show Me Institute.
From the Fortune 400 to college football, we all love rankings. Being in the top 10 is usually an honor, but not when it comes to corporate giveaways. Missouri ranks number 9 as the most generous state in handing out corporate welfare, $5.2 billion in subsidies since 1990. It might be money well spent if the state was booming, but Missouri stands a dismal 49th in economic growth. Tax credits, enterprise zones, TIFs, there are all ways government tries to pick corporate winners. But all too often, we, the taxpayers, are the losers because we end up paying the bill. Instead of giving our money to certain businesses, why doesn't government just cut taxes for all of them? That would make Missouri a more attractive place to do business and stimulate growth. Let the free market decide what businesses thrive or falter, and let Missouri drop out of a dubious top 10 ranking.
When I'm working, things can get so hectic, so sometimes I need to find an easy way to express what's most important to me. Like with my crew, I use shorthand to tell them what I need. And when I need to talk directly to my fans. But the most meaningful shorthand of all is the one I use when I'm about to drive. #X. It's an easy way to tell everyone that I'm about to drive, and I do it every time before I get behind the wheel. Use #X to pause the conversation before you drive, because no text is worth a life.
In Ferguson, we're serving up happiness.
In Ferguson, we're serving up hospitality.
In Ferguson, we're serving up peace.
In Ferguson, we're serving up optimism.
In Ferguson, we're serving up change.
Ferguson is our home, and you're always welcome here.
Hunger in Missouri is bigger than any one of us alone, but it's not bigger than all of us working together. Feeding Missouri is the partner state association for the 6 Feeding America food banks in Missouri. Together, the Missouri food banks make sure that hungry Missourians in all 114 counties and the city of St. Louis have access to healthy, nutritious food on a daily basis. Feeding Missouri's mission is to educate, advocate, and develop resources for Missouri food banks to end hunger in our state. The 6 Missouri food banks are able to collect and distribute millions of pounds of food each year, beginning with a network of 6 large warehouses. These warehouses, located in Springfield, Kansas City, St. Joseph, Columbia, St. Louis, and Sikeston, are the hubs where food is sorted, repackaged, and distributed out to our partner agencies. All of the warehouses have giant refrigerator and freezer sections to accommodate perishable items like milk, meat, and produce. The warehouses are staffed with efficiency experts who work tirelessly to quickly get food to the people who need it. Volunteers are vital to the work of Missouri food banks. Individuals and groups can touch the lives of Missouri communities by sharing their time and talents. Volunteers repackage bulk food, glean fresh produce, assemble grocery boxes for seniors, and pack backpacks for students. In a single shift, volunteers help thousands of people get the food they need. Volunteers also help outside the food bank at fundraisers and food drives. They support nutrition education and outreach, and they are powerful advocates for hungry Missourians because they understand the impact food banks have on our neighbors in need. With donations coming in and distributions going out, the docks at the food banks are always busy. Each food bank serves a broad coverage area. Some even serve counties and neighboring states. The pantries, soup kitchens, and other feeding agencies in the areas closest to the food bank often come and pick up the food for their members, but many agencies rely on delivery from the food bank. Donations help fuel the refrigerated trucks that make these deliveries. Food banks must be incredibly efficient in accessing the product, getting it in the inventory, and getting it out right away. A food pantry is one type of direct distribution agency that puts foods into the hands of low-income families. Pantries receive food from the food bank and private donations. They are typically staffed by volunteers. Some pantries resemble small grocery stores and allow members to make selections based on their dietary needs and preferences. Other pantries prepare boxes of food based on the number and ages of members in the household. Pantries, soup kitchens, and other feeding programs are the frontline agencies that get the food from the food bank to the hungry. Mobile food pantries are designed to help address the transportation barriers that make it difficult for low-income people to access the adequate nutrition they need. During a mobile pantry delivery, the food is given directly to people in need, providing not only frozen, boxed, and canned food, but also fresh produce, bakery, dairy, and meats. Low-income people often lack access to food assistance programs, or they may require additional assistance when those programs cannot provide enough food to meet the growing need. The evolving mission of Missouri food banks includes an emphasis on helping clients to help themselves. Many food banks and agencies work to engage low-income families in nutrition and health education, cooking classes, and demonstration gardening to help them make healthier choices when dealing with a constrained budget. Food insecure households are fraught with challenges that contribute to diet-related health conditions, such as diabetes, obesity, and hypertension. Missouri food banks are giving low-income individuals the tools and the knowledge they need to move toward healthy lifestyles and stronger futures. Missouri is above the national average for households suffering from food insecurity, but your support can change that. Whether you have money, food, or time to share, it is needed. When you support Feeding Missouri, you're impacting families across our state. We can end hunger in Missouri, but only if we do it together.
By any operation standard, whether it's business or nonprofit, that is an impressive way to do your business, way to do your operations. Hi, I'm Mike Ferguson. Thank you for staying with us here on Missouri Viewpoints. Special program this week. Here we are just past Thanksgiving, and we are at one of Feeding Missouri's food banks. We're at the one here in Bridgeton, just outside of St. Louis. Now, I'm joined now by Ryan Farmer, who's Director of Communications for the food bank here in the St. Louis region. And when we see that video that we just showed that shows how you get everything done, is really impressive. But one of the things that I keep wanting to come back to is who's the typical recipient of donations from the food bank, or is there a typical recipient?
Well, I don't know that there's ever a typical, but what we have is an issue of people having to make tough choices, okay? Hunger in America, hunger right here in Missouri, it doesn't look like hunger in third world countries, but you have people that are simply having to make that choice. Am I gonna pay my rent or my mortgage this month, or am I gonna feed my family? Am I gonna, it's getting cold outside, am I gonna turn on the heat, or am I gonna eat this week? And that's a decision that we don't feel like anyone should have to make.
And people may say, well, man, Ryan, that sure sounds like it's almost hyperbole, but the reality is that a lot of people in that situation, they're not going to ask for help either because they're embarrassed or they're afraid it may hurt their place in the workplace, or they may embarrass their kids. So a lot of people need help that just aren't going to verbally go to their neighbor and say, hey, can I borrow some rice?
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that we don't ever want someone to feel, because if they are in need, we want to make sure that they're getting the help that they need. And oftentimes, we Americans, we're pretty prideful people, and they don't always want people to know what's going on in their lives. But, we want to help restore dignity. We want people to feel comfortable because there are resources out there. We want to make sure that the people that are in need are getting what they need.
So the point that we keep kind of driving home here is when someone either writes a check, or they have a food drive at work, or they go to the radio station promotion and they donate to the big barrels that, like in Kansas City, the Harvesters barrels. Mm-hmm. When they do that, it's not going to a warehouse to go across the state. Mm-hmm. It's staying in their neighborhood.
Exactly. We serve 14 counties just in the St. Louis metro area, and when you donate food to us, it's going to stay right here and feed people right here in your backyard.
If you do it at Harvesters in Kansas City, it stays in the Kansas City metro area. Springfield, Columbia, Jeff City, it all stays right there.
Exactly. We've got 6 food banks across the state, and when you make those donations, they're going to stay right there in your backyard.
Ryan, thank you very much. Okay, so we know when you donate to a food bank, either through money or through a food drive, you know that whoever receives your donation is going to get food. Their kids may get something in a buddy pack to take home after school so they know they have a good dinner or have food over the weekend. But is there something in it for you when you volunteer your time? Well, we're going to meet Berna right now, and Berna is going to show us that you may be giving your time to other people, but you get something in return as well.
My heart goes out to children, and no child should ever be hungry. I feel wonderful. We're tired, but really there is so many people that need help so bad. They're so deserving, and every one of them either wants to hug me or God bless me or feel good, feel wonderful. One lady had a fire in her house, and she had absolutely nothing. She had like 5 little kids. She had no burnt. Her face was just pitiful. And she had nothing to give her. This was before Christmas. Nothing. Well, she came in, we gave her everything. We got toys from the store. Those kids had a Christmas, and that she just started crying. She was just so, of course we all did too, so. You will get so many blessings from it. So many blessings. You'll feel good. You can come here and not have a good day, you know, get up crabby or something. But by the time you leave here, you're fine. You're in a good mood, and you've just been truly blessed. I am Berna, and I'm Feeding Missouri.
Scott, I love that story because while Berna is volunteering her time, she's made it pretty clear that, hey, there's something in it for you too when you donate, whether it's money, whether it's food, whether it's your volunteer hours. It's okay to say, I'm getting some satisfaction, I'm getting some joy out of this as well.
Very fulfilling when you help out your neighbors.
Scott Baker from the Feeding Missouri, he's the state director, actually, big boss here in the entire state of Missouri. Now, one of the things that I think we all are open to donating more to the food bank and to Feeding Missouri and to other charities, frankly, at this time of year. Something you mentioned to me in a discussion that we've had in the past really stuck with me, is the need for food doesn't change throughout the year, but right now is when you're really stocking up.
Yeah. You know, it's something that's hard to talk about because we never want to sound like we're complaining, but yes, the need is there all year long. Fortunately, people think of it this time of year, and so we see a lot of donations come in this time of year, but certainly the need is consistent throughout the year.
Do you know about how much of your annual donations come during the holiday season?
You know, it's not unusual for about half of donations, money and food, to come in November and December.
So if you've got that tug on the heart at all that says, yeah, I can help out, I can do something, follow through. And the best way to get involved, what's the best way to get involved?
A few different ways. Give money, give food, give time. FeedingMissouri.org will connect you with your local food bank, and they'll be happy to set you or your neighborhood group up however you want to help.
And this is something that, of course, we have a lot of radio and TV food drives right now, but it's important for people to remember, after the holiday season, the need is still going to be there, so stay involved.
Yeah, really, and just being aware of the problem and its existence throughout the year, and just increasing that awareness is really half the battle when we talk about hunger in Missouri.
That is so easy. Yeah. And how many people do you feed in Missouri every year?
About 1 million, a little over 1 million a year is how many clients that we serve throughout the state in 1 year. So the problem is real and it's significant.
Now, to put that in perspective, there's just a little over 5 million people in our state. So we're talking about 1 out of 5 people. Picture 5 people, 5 of your friends and neighbors right now. At least one of them is going to benefit from your donation to the food bank. This program has been a joint presentation of Mike Ferguson Media, Lindenwood University Television, and Feeding Missouri, where we really hope that you will go to feedingmissouri.org, learn what you can do, and do something. It's very easy to do. Have a great holiday season. On behalf of Lindenwood University Television, I'm Mike Ferguson. We'll talk to you again next week.